Analytic memos are an essential part of the process of any qualitative analysis. They help us document the development of our thought processes as they occur, and the notes we take are a very important record of how the analysis proceeds, why we make the analytic choices we do, and how we reach our conclusions. As we do our qualitative write-up, our analytic memos can remind us of critical information about our analysis and can promote trustworthiness and credibility in that analysis. Detailed analytic memos can also be important for collaboration, as our fellow researchers can follow what we are trying to do and why we do it in connection with the actual data described. In Transana, analytic memos are implemented through a flexible system called notes. We can add notes to almost any data record in Transana. All we do is right-click an item in the database tree and select the Add Note item in the menu. We give each note a name, as we may want to have more than one note for some items, and then we type whatever we need to in the note. While you will develop your own system for creating notes that match your analytic needs and style, let me describe a few of the ways I use notes in my own analysis. I will use a small example from my analysis of an old television ad campaign to illustrate. When working in a categorization mode, creating theoretically driven collections to represent our analytic themes, it's always a good idea to create collection notes describing the theoretical construct each collection represents in more detail than the title of the collection can capture. For example, I created a collection that represents instances where assertions in the advertisements I was evaluating did not hold up to logical scrutiny. I called this collection Logical Fallacies. I'm going to right-click the collection and choose Add Collection Note. I'll name my note Logical Fallacies Description after my original collection name. With collection notes, it can be particularly useful to start each entry in the note with a date timestamp. So I'll press Ctrl-T on Windows or Command-T on Mac OS to automatically insert the date and time. In multi-user Transana would also include my username in this notation. I'll now enter a description of the function this collection serves in my analysis, describing the theoretical significance of this collection. When I close the note, we see it is attached to and displayed within the collection where I created it. What I find is that sometimes my understanding of my data changes significantly over the course of my analysis, requiring some adjustment to my themes. When this happens, I don't delete outdated ideas from my collection notes. Instead, I put a new date timestamp in the note, describe my new understanding of the theme, and describe what led me to changing my ideas. By recording my analytic memos in this way, I leave a trail of breadcrumbs that allows me to retrace my intellectual journey through the analysis of the data. This gives a more nuanced picture of my analysis than does a record of successes carefully scrubbed clean of the inevitable analytic missteps and dead ends I encountered along the way. It allows me to tell a much more authentic and credible story and make my conclusions more trustworthy to others who dig into my analytic data. When I create clips, quotes, or snapshots, I find it is often helpful to add notes to them detailing what was behind the creation of each analytic object. For example, a clip note can document the thinking behind a particular selection of video, where it starts and ends, why it belongs in a particular collection, and why I chose the coding I did. In my Logical Fallacies collection, we can see 2 clips. Let's add notes to them. In the first clip, the ad describes the difficulty of corporate network administration in one environment, contrasted with the ease in the other environment of casual home use. That's not really a fair comparison. In the second clip, the person complains about hardware failure as if that was something that only occurs on one system and not the other. Notes are essential in documenting thoughts and insights that may not necessarily be obvious by looking at the individual data selections, but that become clear to the researcher working with the larger body of data. Notes can explain the analytic decisions behind the selection, coding, and categorization of specific data elements. Transana's notes are very flexible, and this screencast only suggests a few ways that they can be used. I cannot emphasize strongly enough how important it is to create good analytic memos as you proceed with your qualitative analysis, and notes are a convenient mechanism for handling this important analytic task. They can also be useful for many other analytic purposes, but that's beyond the scope of this tutorial.